Booking.com is the biggest travel company in the world. It's worth $140 billion. That's 4 times Expedia and comfortably more than Hilton and Airbnb. Every single day, 3 million hotel nights are booked across all of its brands. And the business is thriving, posting a record $27 billion of revenue in 2025. So then why is the stock price down more than 20% over the last year? It's partly thanks to the conflict in the Middle East. But there's a bigger fear, and of course, it's AI. In a future where Claude books all your hotels and all your flights, investors are worried that Booking.com may no longer be needed. So I had a few questions. How did Booking.com start? How has it come to dominate online travel? And could AI actually destroy everything it's built? My name is Saurav Risbud, and this is Playbook. I tell the stories of icons in business, tech, and sport. The Booking.com story starts in Amsterdam in 1996 with this guy, Geert-Jan Bruinsma, who was a recent college graduate. He thought that booking hotels in Europe was a nightmare. You had to call up on the phone, and you often didn't speak the same language. He had a feeling that this new internet thing could probably help. But there was no one website with all hotel information available. So he made his own, and he called it bookings.nl. To get the first hotels on board, he sent out thousands of postcards across Europe with a form to sign up. He let the hotels set prices and promised to take only a 5% commission. And it started to work. There was a huge number of small hotels that just didn't have the resources to be online, and they loved what he had to offer. So slowly, bookings.nl kept growing. In 2000, they merged with another Dutch startup called bookings.org and rebranded to booking.com. But Geert wasn't going to be the one to turn booking.com into the giant we know today. Instead, a struggling American company was about to come knocking, led by this guy, Glenn Fogel. Spoiler alert, he's now the CEO of Booking. In the early 2000s, Glenn was the head of M&A at an online travel company called Priceline.
Saving money is no laughing matter.
Priceline had a pretty insane .com era business model called the name your own price system. You went online and told Priceline how much you're willing to pay for a flight. If your bid was good enough, Priceline immediately charged your card and booked you on a non-refundable flight on an unspecified airline at an unspecified time. Shockingly, after the .com crash, they weren't doing so well. And so Glenn was sniffing around in Europe for acquisition opportunities that would save the company. He started in the UK.
I found these young people just out of school, and they had a company called Active Hotels that sold just hotels, but it sold hotels the old-fashioned way. They told you what the hotel was. So we did that in 2004.
First acquisition?
First acquisition in 2004. That was 165 million US.
A few months later, he meets the Booking.com team and gets really excited.
These guys are onto something because it looked like hand in glove. Active Hotels in the UK, Booking.com in Europe, same model, very much so. And we combined Active and Booking. Booking was 135 million. So combined together, 300 million for the both of them merged together.
Now, these two acquisitions turned out to be maybe the 2 best acquisitions in tech history, right up there with Google buying YouTube and Facebook buying Instagram. Because in 2006, the new Priceline Group sold 18.7 million room nights. Just 10 years later, that was over $500 million. That's over 40% annual growth for 10 years. Fast forward another 10 years, and the company, now called Booking Holdings, did 1.2 billion room nights in 2025. Remember, Fogel paid $300 million for 2 companies that now do $10 billion in earnings every year. So how did Booking manage this astounding growth? Let's take a closer look. There are 4 factors behind Booking.com's success. The first is the rapid growth of global travel. Booking.com effectively functions as a toll booth on the global travel market, and rising incomes have meant that more and more people can afford to travel. When Priceline bought Booking in 2005, there were 800 million international tourists every year. Last year, that's increased to 1.5 billion. But while the market's doubled, Booking's room nights have increased by 65 times in the same amount of time. So there's more to the story. And a major factor here is Booking.com's counterintuitive business model. There are 2 ways you can run an online travel agency: with an agency model like Bookings.com, or with a merchant model like Expedia. Here's Glenn Fogel explaining the difference.
And the agency method was you booked the hotel, but you didn't pay Active Hotels or Booking.com. You waited until you showed up at the hotel and you paid the hotel. Then sometime later, the hotel would send us our commission. But there's also the merchant model where your credit card was charged immediately, even though you may not be traveling for many, many months. You get to keep the cash. You hand it over to the supplier way down the road.
And on the surface, Expedia's merchant model is way better. You charge customers up front and pay hotels much later. In fact, Expedia actually passed up the opportunity to acquire Booking.com in 2002 because they thought the agency model sucked. So then how did Booking manage to win? Well, what Expedia underestimated is how much better the agency model is for hotels.
No risk to them. We said, sign up with us. You don't have to pay us any money until we put a head in your bed.
This means that hotels signed up at a much faster rate to Booking.com than to Expedia. Which leads me to the third point, the power of marketplaces. Booking.com is a marketplace, and marketplaces have a chicken and egg problem. Travelers will only go where hotels are, and hotels will only list where travelers are. So to be successful, you need to build both supply and demand at the same time. The agency model solved this problem for Booking, because there was literally no downside. More hotels signed up to Booking.com. Because more hotels signed up, more travelers visited Booking.com, which meant that more hotels signed up, and on and on and on. At a certain scale, this marketplace model is incredibly effective because there's no incentive for demand or supply to go anywhere else. And since Booking doesn't actually own any of the hotels, flights, or planes, as the network gets bigger, the costs stay roughly the same, and profits expand. The last factor is that Booking absolutely nailed search engine marketing and conversion. Travel is perfect for search engine ads. If you Google hotels in New York, that is a very high intent search. You're very close to dropping hundreds or thousands of dollars on flights and accommodation. So the right ad at the right time can be very profitable. Because of this, Booking has become one of the biggest advertisers on Google, spending nearly $8 billion in 2025. But this only works if you actually turn those ad clicks into checkouts. And this is Booking.com's superpower. Booking.com is one of the most A/B tested websites on the internet. Every button, every color, every photo, every piece of text has been optimized. And the conversion rate is 2 to 3 times industry average. You know those stressful callouts of only 2 rooms left at this price, or 8 other people are looking at this hotel right now. Booking.com invented those, and they've now become industry standard. Okay, so clearly Fogel and the Booking team have built an incredible business. But we can't deny that the stock has dropped by nearly a quarter since last year. And that's where we get to Booking's AI problem. Booking.com's always had one great vulnerability. It's hugely dependent on Google. And that's risky because Google could just cut out Booking.com and go straight to the suppliers. And they've tried. In 2019, Google rolled out their hotels module. Now, if you Google hotels in Rome, this is what pops up first, instead of Booking's paid ads. But despite this, Booking's been fine. Even after a global pandemic, revenues are up 80% from 2019. It's because they've built their brand to a point where people just come straight to Booking.com now. Over 60% of searches start from the Booking.com homepage. But AI is a bit different. It takes the threat of being cut out to a different level. Here's the bear case. You say, hey Claude, can you plan and book a perfect Euro summer trip with plenty of tiramisu and Aperol spritzers? No mistakes, please. And Claude goes off and books all your flights, all your accommodation, all your cars directly with the providers, completely bypassing Booking.com. Doesn't matter how good your A/B tests are if no one comes to your website. But I actually think this is less of a threat than people think for 3 reasons. Firstly, both consumers and AI companies just aren't that keen on buying travel through AI. Customers just haven't built that level of trust yet. And more importantly, AI companies don't want to deal with all the hard, messy work of facilitating payments and doing customer service.
Can you imagine you book your hotel through Claude, something goes wrong, who are you going to call? What's the telephone number for Claude to call? That's not happening. And by the way, all of the leading LLMs have said they don't want to be travel agents.
Now, to be fair, I think Glenn has a vested interest in that point of view. But I think the second and more important point is that Booking.com still owns all the supply. Its real asset is this huge inventory of millions of small hotels. An AI agent can plan a perfect trip, but to actually book the hotel, it would still have to come through Booking.com. This actually turns things into an opportunity for Booking. If agentic searching and buying goes up, Booking could charge a fee to every AI query and make a lot more money. And lastly, Booking isn't standing still. They've already introduced an AI trip planner into the app. Look, there's still room for improvement here. I asked the AI in the app a pretty basic question and it couldn't help me. But the direction here is clear. Booking is moving closer and closer to the planning stage for the customer. I actually think in the medium term, AI could supercharge Booking.com. For the last few years, Booking has been building what it calls the connected trip, stitching together all your accommodation, flights, car rentals, tourist attractions, whatever it may be. And that's always been quite hard to do at scale. But AI actually makes this a lot easier. And this mass personalization could help Booking sell a lot more. So will AI destroy Booking.com? It's hard to say, but I really don't think so. I can't deny that it won't be challenging. But if history is anything to go by, Booking is a bad company to bet against. Thanks for watching episode 6 of Playbook. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what business, tech, or sports story you want to hear about next.